Right, good morning everybody, and welcome to this, the 7th episode of the TRBC, or Twickenham and Richmond Business Collective Business Survival Guide. For those of you that don't know us, TRBC we're a group of like-minded small business owners that all work and operate in and around the Richmond and Twickenham area, and we've come together to provide, well, we're kind of a support group for each other. So we do a lot of sharing best practice and helping each other out, but we are also a one-stop shop, if you like, for professional services for small business clients around the area. So no matter what it is that you need as a small business, be that planning, strategic advice, technical support, HR advice, marketing, design, anything really that you turn your mind to, then TRBC are here to help you with that. We have experts on the team, and we know lots of experts in all sorts of areas around the region. So that's us. We've been holding these survival guides for the last couple of months now to just help businesses sort of get through this period of lockdown, of uncertainty, talking about things that are generally of interest to small business owners, and that might provide us all with some hints, tips, ideas, things we can do to make lockdown and all of the disruption to business that comes with it easier to survive. And our ultimate aim, I guess all of our aims really, is to come out of the other side of this stronger, better, fitter, and adapted to whatever the world looks like when we get there. So that's the background. You can find out more about us on our website, which is trbc.co. Or you can just contact any of us if you want to find out more. So without further ado, I am going to introduce Dave Webster of Webster Consulting. Dave is a member of TRBC, one of the founding members. He's been with us for a couple of years and is a specialist in technology and all matters communication, cybersecurity, etc. So Dave, welcome. Good to have you with us again.
Thank you, Paul.
So I'm going to hand over to you, I think, straight away. I know you've got quite a lot to talk about. So why don't you tell us, what are we going to be talking about today?
So today I want to help everybody improve your video calls. So I'm going to be talking about how you can make some simple improvements yourself, and then with the things that we can do to help you. And we've also got some examples of customers and clients that we've already helped. So it's a 3-step process to improve your Zoom calls and also delight your family and your customers with a superior internet experience.
Sounds impressive. So you say it's a 3-step process. What's the first step?
And that is an excellent question. So quick wins is the first step. So I don't know, can everyone see my thumbs up if everyone can see the presentation? Beautiful. So we've got a picture here of the members of our cabinet. And I don't know whether you can see the person that's got PM under his chin, but that is Boris Johnson. And I thought I'd start with this because the first thing that you can do to improve your video conference is look at your presence. So I have to say, I know Boris has had the coronavirus, but he's not looking particularly good in that picture. And the other thing that I think you can do is posture. So if you look at I think we've got 4, 8, 12 here. Yeah, so if you look at like a game of battleships, one up and one across, I think it's got SOS in the identity. That's, I think, the perfect way to present to people when you're on one of these calls. And hopefully I'm echoing that myself. But posture is really important. The other thing that you can do to really improve things is actually have a headset or those Apple EarPods. They've got a little built-in microphone. And what you might not know is a lot of software actually switches your audio on and your audio off in preference for your speaker and your microphone, because if it didn't, you get acoustic feedback. So there can be a very short delay between you talking to your audience and the software switching. So if you want to avoid that, you can use a headset, something off of Amazon, you know, less than £50, but it can certainly make a massive improvement to your audio quality. The other thing, I would say, look into camera. I'm going to be talking about cameras on the next slide in a little bit more detail. But the other thing is, be on time. I've noticed a lot of people, if you were meeting in person, you definitely be on time. And what I'm finding is a lot of people, as we switch to virtual, are not as punctual as they should be. So those are things that you can do yourself. The chap in the top right-hand corner on the next slide obviously looks like he's in business attire, but clearly isn't. The other thing I'd mention is, if you've got an old PC, the chances are that the quality of video in that laptop might be several years old, and therefore it might be a low-res image. You can actually buy a USB camera that's got high definition, 1080p definition with a built-in microphone, which will definitely improve your performance. I'm using a Logitech C920 today and a separate microphone. But one of the other things you might not know is, when you're on a conference call, you can actually telephone into the call. So we had a situation on our last presentation where the audio quality of the speaker wasn't particularly good. So we asked him to dial in using his mobile phone, and the microphones and cameras in smartphones are probably the best you've ever owned. So it's another way in which you can improve the audio quality by just using the facilities that you've got at your fingertips. The other thing is, if you do use your smartphone, just going back to the other slide for a second, you can see Jacob Ree's Fogg. I can tell you that he's taking part on this call using his smartphone because he's in portrait mode. And obviously, if you turn your phone to landscape, the picture changes to landscape. So you can make some really good improvements simply by using the technology in a better way. I know Graham's on the call. I have spoken to Graham about this because I don't want to highlight one individual, but Graham was on our call several weeks ago, and I said, why don't you get yourself an HD camera, which he's got, and hopefully at the end of this presentation today, when we ask for members of the audience to give me questions, you'll see that Graham's performance today, visually and from an audio point of view, is significantly different. He's also turned his desk around because he's got a light in his room that's shining down. So lighting is very important as well. So if you're sitting next to a window, you could perhaps be overexposed, or in Graham's case, he's sitting below a window, he's overexposed. You can make a significant improvement to the quality of your video calls.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you can see Graham, but give us a wave, Graham, so we know where you are. Hi, Graham. Great improvement. Can't see your nostril hair anymore. I did forget to mention that if you have any questions, and I'm sure you will, because there's an awful lot in Dave's talk, but please do feel free to put them into chat, and we'll try and address them as we go along. Or failing that, we will have time for a bit of a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Dave, you mentioned it's a three-step process. We've gone through the quick wins. What next? What are the sort of, I think, key levers is the phrase you use?
Yeah, so this is things where you might need to consider potentially working with somebody like Webster Consulting to help you improve. There's a big difference between consumer grade and business grade networking products. And obviously a lot of us are dovetailing on maybe a Sky bundled account, but it's a consumer grade broadband package. And what I've got to show you today is how we can actually improve the service you currently get from your existing or above your existing supplier, but also potentially save you money as well. So things to consider are, you do get what you pay for. So shared connections do hamper the use of your internet, which we've all realized now because we've been working with members of our family and we're all fighting to use the internet. All-in-one deals are not good. You get poor support and poor service. I'll go through the reasons for switching and what on the inside really, really matters, and I'll go through that as well. So one of the things that gets spoken about when you get a fixed line broadband is contention ratio. Well, we all experience that because you've probably got your partner wanting to use the internet, and if you've got children in the house, they're wanting to use that as well. But this is a term that we actually use when we scope a broadband service for a client. And if you're using a consumer grade broadband service, you're probably sharing it with as many as 50 other people. Whereas if you get a business service, there may only be 20 people on there. You'll also see differences in performance. I've been doing speed tests early in the morning, middle of the day, end of the day. The experience changes massively depending on how many other people are using that service with you. If you've had broadband for a long time, what version of broadband have you got? Is it an ADSL1, or are you using a cable or a fiber to the cabinet, or if you're really lucky, a fiber to the premise? So what we're offering today is, if you don't know the answer to that question, please contact us and we will do a free survey to advise you what service you've got and whether or not we can improve the service and save cost. So as I said, all-in-one deals aren't good. Sky typically do this. I know there are utilities companies that do this, and obviously BT are now trying to do it with their BT service. You do not need Sky broadband to get Sky TV, and similarly, you don't need BT broadband to get BT Sport. So you can use any broadband, and if you look at some of the performance that you get on the shared services, it's not particularly good. So this is a client that we spoke to during lockdown. They were paying £135 a month to Sky, which included their landline and their broadband. And the performance they were getting 1.42 megabits per second down and only 0.1 up, which was impossible. We couldn't even do a video call with that kind of service. So what we were able to do was to replace their broadband supplier. So they gave notice to Sky that they didn't want to use their broadband and telephone, and they're now paying £68 a month. So they've saved £40 just by moving supplier. We've given them a free VoIP circuit, so they've got a telephone line, but let's be honest, who calls us on a landline anymore? It's going to be the parents or the grandparents. Most people use mobile. But again, you know, why are you paying line rental for something that you don't use when you can upgrade your broadband, save money, and still get a landline circuit for nothing if you want to still use a landline? So there's a really good example of something that we've done for our client during lockdown. And they're now doing homeschooling. They've got a video camera. Their partner actually offers counselling services, and they're now counselling their clients from home just by improving their infrastructure. So the reasons for switching, the vast majority of us are using consumer grade broadband, but we're running a business from home. And as you can see, 4 out of 10 SMEs have switched. In regards to, if you're consumer, you might think what you've got's okay, but I would definitely encourage you to obviously contact us and see whether or not we can make things better and actually save you money. Because if you do move to a business broadband supplier, it will be a lot better service than you're currently getting. And incidentally, this client actually was lucky enough to have fiber to the premise. So that's a fiber connection straight to their door with an 8010 data only circuit. So there may be a really good reason for you to consider switching at this time. And as I said, what's on the inside really matters. I mean, this is a typical household now. We'll have multiple IP televisions, we'll have PlayStations, we'll have multiple computers. And if you think in a modern house and you only have one tap and you've got 4 or 5 people that are wanting to brush their teeth, that's effectively what you're doing by using a consumer grade broadband supply where everyone's trying to get to that tap to clean their teeth. So it is really important these days that you consider that Wi-Fi needs to be distributed evenly over the property and not just have it in one corner of the room, which you get with most consumer connections. And as I say, you'll get a lot better contention ratio, save money. So what's not to like?
Okay, that's helpful, Dave. I guess it does raise a couple of questions. The one thing actually that's coming from James, it's a good question, which is, one of the biggest problems that he's facing is people dropping out of Zoom calls and freezing midway through the calls. And I guess to an extent, this is your solution to that. Have you got any other tips around that?
I think a lot of people don't realise some of the things that I've shared today. I like to use the analogy of you're listening to a transistor radio and you start walking away from it, the volume gets less and less. And I think a lot of people that are new to video conferencing perhaps don't realise that. We can definitely help improve. We've got some examples later in the slide deck where we can show you what we've done for some clients. But I was on a call the other day and the landline broadband dropped and the client then had to use their mobile phone to use their mobile broadband and then reconnect to the call. So there's all sorts of things that you can do. It's just a question of working with somebody like ourselves with regards to sort of helping you utilize the technology that you've already got.
Okay, and a great question from Jackie. She's asking, what does Webster Consulting actually charge to help businesses switch their internet supplier?
It's free of charge today. If you contact us, we'll do an audit of what you're using currently, and then we'll make a recommendation based on that finding, and we can actually supply alternative broadband if that's the route you choose to go. What I would say is don't use the standard BT router as in this example. What you can sort of move towards, and some of the clients that I'm going to talk about in the next slide have used not all of this, they've used some of this, but if you wanted to have a similar office experience in your home, you would have to consider having access points, which again we can do on a rental basis, and we can upgrade your infrastructure to allow you to use the internet a lot more securely and a lot more reliably. So in these clients, Old Briar Property Services, Mandy's on the call with us today. Clive is the best heating engineer that you'll find in Newbury. So if you need a plumber to come out and help you, he's definitely worth giving a call. But they were struggling with, they live in Ashford Hill, and that's not a particularly good area for fixed line broadband, and we were able to help them upgrade their circuit and then distribute the Wi-Fi evenly across their property. And as you can see, Mandy's presence on the call today, they're using an HD camera, got a really good broadband connection, and they don't have any complaints from their children anymore. Your Vegan Bookkeeper, Tracy's on the call today. We sat down with Tracy and basically looked at what she was spending on all of her comms, and we were able to reduce that and improve the quality of the service that she got as a result of that. And then we've got another client who is called the Roving Artist. Charles has cut silhouettes from the Queen down, really. He's literally cut silhouettes across the globe. And again, he had an extension in his house about 3 years ago, and we were involved in helping him scope what he needed to run his business or multiple businesses from home. So we improved the LAN, we reduced the cost of what he was paying, and he now has Wi-Fi in his studio And only last week he was telling me that he was doing a Zoom call with people in America who had collie dogs, and he was able, due to the quality of video that he was able to use, cut a silhouette of people's collie dogs over Zoom. So it just goes to show what you can do to improve your service.
Okay, so that is that's really helpful. So we have a question from Nick, which is another great question. What happens, Dave, if you're bound into a contract with your provider, so you can't easily get out of your internet contract? Any suggestions for that?
So that is a difficult one. It depends. BT tend to tie you into 18-month-long contracts. We're talking to a client at the moment that we're fortunate to be only tied into a 12-month contract. I mean, the only solution is to wait, really. Wait until you're out of contract, and then you can go and look for alternative suppliers. We work with Spitfire, who are probably the third biggest telco provider in the UK, and in all the cases I've shown you, we've resold Spitfire's service, which is more reliable and less cost than BT. So if you are a BT or a Sky customer, I definitely have a look at seeing what contract you're in and whether or not you'd like to look at some alternatives, and more than happy to help in that area.
Okay. And a question from Viv. He's asking, do Wi-Fi boosters help? And can they help enhance your system sufficiently, or is the true answer going to be to get a commercial grade system?
They definitely help, but they are consumer grade. They're made to a price, and invariably you throw them away. The sad thing is, a lot of people don't realise that you can get professional grade equipment for less money. So you might be spending 50, 60, 70 pounds on a booster when you could be using a Ubiquiti access point that's going to be much more robust and superior technology for similar money, really.
Do you think, Dave, that it makes sense to have a separate Wi-Fi connection if you're working from home? Have a separate Wi-Fi connection for your business to your home? I mean, obviously there's more expense, but I guess that gives you some added security then.
Well, people used to have business telephone numbers and their residential telephone number. I try and discourage that. I mean, if anything, broadband capacity is increasing and it's underutilized. So I guess it's a business case to having an individual one, but I tend to sort of share with people what you can do with what you've already got. So you have another broadband service on your mobile phone, which you can utilize. We're doing some testing at the moment with these types of devices. I don't know whether you can see that, but this is a Huawei router that you can put a 4G SIM into, and obviously we've worked with a client where we tested all the major providers, O2, EE, 3 and Vodafone, to see what gave the best signal for their physical location. And you can start to use these devices. So you're not in a contract, you can cancel at 30 days, but it gives you a backup in the event of some failure. So there are better alternatives than paying for 2 contracts, that's for sure. The other thing is 5G is being tested as we speak, and I'm going to be suggesting to people, why have a fixed line broadband when 5G is going to be at the speeds that it's mooted to be at? You know, you could consolidate, save money, and get an even better, superior service than you've currently got. So there are lots of options out there for you.
So do you think in the long run it's going to be even necessary for people to have home broadband once 5G comes in?
I think it's certainly, if we're looking at mobile phone usage, most youngsters only have a mobile phone, they don't have landlines, and I think it's likely that will be the case moving forward, yes.
It's a question whether it be sufficient for business use, I guess.
Yes, and again, it's fit for purpose. If you, I mean, we do offer Ethernet to the building as well, where you can get 250 megabit per second connections, and if you've got 10, 50, 100 people all wanting to obviously get a fast speed, you do need to look at the size of the pipe coming into the property. But certainly think working from home, you have a lot of options, and we'll have even more in the very near future.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned also that you can provide voice over internet telephony.
Yep.
If people are introducing that at home, are they able to transfer their existing landline numbers over to VoIP?
That's a really good question, and yes, you can. Charles, for example, we did that for him. There is a cost associated with that, a one-off fee, but you can port your landline number exactly the same as you can port your mobile number. So as for your clients wouldn't even know that you've done that. They would ring the number they've always rung and it would ring. There are other advantages by moving from a fixed line to VoIP. You can have your landline number ring on your mobile phone because it's a VoIP number. So you can take your office desk with you. It's like two phones in one on your mobile phone. So you have your standard mobile number and then you have your office number. You don't have to have it ringing on your phone. I'm saying you can have it ringing on your phone. Alternatively, you can have it ringing in your office at the same time. VoIP telephone solutions are extremely flexible and they do definitely benefit small business.
Okay. And James has mentioned that he knows someone whose broadband is not working and they have a 14-day wait for BT to come and fix the problem. Clearly, that's going to have a massive impact on them working from home and homeschooling. Any short-term solutions, any tips or hints that you can suggest? Sounds like a good candidate for a free broadband audit from you, actually, Dave.
And if it's James Wright that's asked that question, he has migrated onto a SIP service as well. So he can definitely vouch for the benefits. But again, you can buy these, they're called LTE routers. I mean, we can supply them. They cost about £100. You can get them off of Amazon and you could put your own SIM in here. And provided you've got a mobile signal at that location, you could be up and running in minutes, really. A lot of people, when they move properties, it takes a while for the supplier of your broadband to move to your new house. A lot of people buy these. You can have a month-only service if you want. We supply 3 SIMs, and you can pay it 30 days usage and buy the modem. I do recommend these because you have a LAN port at the back, whereas these types of devices, which will do the same thing, they're Wi-Fi broadband, they're mobile broadband, but it just works over Wi-Fi. You can't have a physical connection, and I always think having the option to put an Ethernet cable in the back and connect it to other devices will allow you to share that internet service across your property. And whilst we've been testing that, we've had in my house we have had as many as 45 current connections all going out over 4G, and everyone's been working. We haven't done it during the lockdown with video calls, but we've certainly done it with streaming Netflix and using the internet like we normally would. It might be worth me doing a test whilst we're all on a video call, because it's just interesting what you can do with 4G. That's even before 5G is available.
Fantastic, absolutely. Okay, so I think that's the end of the chat questions. We're doing fine for time, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the mics and unmute everybody. So if anybody does have any final questions for Dave, you can ask them face to face.
I do just have one. I'm going to show Graham's in shot at the moment, so I'm going to show you a before and after of Graham.
One with hair, one without, right?
Sorry, I can't help you with the hair, Graham, but
I thought
look at the difference with regards to how Graham was presenting 4 weeks ago and how he's presenting now. I mean, it's so much better, so much better.
Yeah,
and I like the Asprey pop-up banner in the background.
Yeah, it's not professional to be overexposed to it, and you get in trouble for that.
Exactly.
Now,
I've got a question.
I think you all have to unmute yourselves. That seems to be the message here. So anyone has a question? Viv?
I've got a question for Dave. Dave, we have a location that we work from in France occasionally, and we have trouble there with getting a suitable SIM card. Could you get me a SIM card for France, a French SIM card that would allow data use?
And I think that is a really good question and a really good example. So we can get you a SIM. 3 have a fair use policy, so they will allow you to take a UK purchased SIM to 91 countries across the globe and use it as if you're at home. So there's no roaming charges, and it would be perfect for, in fact, we've provided another client with that modem that I was showing you earlier when they go to Spain every year. So that would be a perfect way of doing it. Alternatively to that, you could still use the Huawei modem, and sometimes it's worth speaking to locals where you're actually residing, because it's quite common that you can buy a SIM particularly in France, Spain, Germany, at local costs that you can just simply plug into that modem and use it whilst you're on holiday. So Orange have one solution which is worth trying, but I'd also ask when you're next in France what the locals use and how much it costs.
I know what the locals use. So we have a Hawaii SIM, a 4G router in France, and the 2 networks that work really well where we are, well, there's 3 networks that work really well. The one that doesn't is Orange, unfortunately. The ones that do work well is Bugawai's Telecom and Free Wi-Fi. They both work really well, but both of them, we haven't been able to find a way that they won't charge us for a contract for a data SIM. So that's why I was asking you.
Well, definitely show you what 3 offer. I pay £18 a month for a SIM that I use in a mobile router, and that's unlimited calls, texts and data for £18. You can pay significantly less than that, but obviously they start capping on those 3 things. Invariably it's data, but 20 gigabytes, 12 gigabytes, most people wouldn't use that in a 2-week vacation, but obviously if you're using Netflix and stuff, you do rattle through data at quite an alarming rate.
I'm just sorry to be boring about this. I hope everyone else is not bored with my questions. The final question is, I've forgotten that. You blew me with that response. If I think of it, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
So Dave, just something to add. So this Huawei modem, would that be like a backup? So if, let's say, you're using it at home rather than abroad, but let's say would you have your, on my internet with BT and touch wood, it seems to be quite good, but would you have your Huawei modem as a backup in case like BT broke and I had to wait 14 days? Or were you saying use that as your main internet provider?
I would definitely start by using it as a backup.
Yeah.
You were ping-ponging there, Rob. So the audio is breaking up just a teeny weeny bit.
Maybe BT isn't as good as I thought then.
We need to talk, Rob. But yeah, I'm more than happy to let you try before you buy as well. So see how easy it is.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Right. Does anybody have any more questions for Dave? We've got him for a few more minutes. So any pressing connectivity, internet, Zoom call, Wi-Fi, VoIP questions, anything that's been troubling you, plaguing you, worrying you, exciting you, boring you?
The other thing, whilst we're waiting for people to ask questions, I see Pete Moles is on the call with us. One of the things that we like is we tend to ask people to keep their cameras on. If you're on a telephone audio line, which Liv is, he obviously can't. But again, think of it as you're actually talking to the person. You wouldn't sit having coffee, going with your head to facing them. And I think a lot of people think on a video call, the rules to the game change, but they don't. I think it's perhaps more important to have good eye contact with people. But it's personal preference at the end of the day. But if you're wanting to leave a good impression with your clients, then I would recommend you put your cameras on.
And Dave, can you give us any advice about cybersecurity? Because there are an awful lot of scams going around at the moment as a result of COVID-19.
We did cover a little bit of that in the last presentation. I would always ask the question twice. And again, I'll offer this to anybody. If you've any doubt, please contact me and get a second opinion. If you feel it might be scammy, there are an awful lot of scams out there. There's a lot of phishing sites that trick you into thinking that you're going to a site, but it looks exactly like the site you normally go to, but it isn't. We've suggested in the last seminar about using a product called Malwarebytes, which is a free service. You can pay a subscription for it. I think a lot of people think Microsoft Defender is the only thing they need. I would always go for a third-party virus protection suite. We are F-Secure partners, and again, you've probably heard of Symantec and McAfee, but F-Secure are probably the single biggest supplier of internet security software. The reason you've probably not heard of them is they tend to sell directly via Virgin. So if you're a Virgin customer, you might well find that you get that as part of your bundle. I know when I did some work with Viv, we found that to be the case. So he cancelled his subscription with McAfee, and he was getting his security from his ISP, in this case Virgin. But I would definitely recommend that you start using Malwarebytes. And the other thing I'd recommend is start using these pieces of software on your mobile devices as well. The modern smartphone is a computer at the end of the day, and you need protection on that as well. Sorry?
So is there something special you have to use for the mobile?
No, you can use all of those products on both Macs, PCs, and smartphones.
Thank you.
So we have, so I'm not sure who's asking the question, but we use NordVPN. What do you think of it, Dave?
So I haven't mentioned VPNs today, but if you're working in an office, my son has been working from home and his company insists that he connects from our broadband through a VPN to their office. And what a VPN stands for, Virtual Private Network. It basically uses the internet to connect from home to your office through a private tunnel. And I would, if you're really paranoid, I use NordVPN myself. I would recommend using products like that. I used to say there's an advantage of using a VPN, particularly if you consume content when you go to France, Spain, and other places in Europe, because if you put your VPN on in your mobile device and say you're actually in the UK when you're actually in another country in Europe, you used to be able to still get EastEnders. I know the BBC have got a little bit smart now and they're blocking VPN, but there are smart VPNs out there that you can use so you can consume content when you're outside of the UK.
That's it. And that question was from Tracy. Sorry, Tracy. Good. So I think on that note, now we all know how to watch EastEnders in Spain. Really, there's nothing more to add, is there? Any final questions before we wrap up? Good. Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Thank you very much, Dave, for sharing your knowledge and insight. It's been incredibly valuable, incredibly useful. For those of you that missed anything, want to see it again, We have recorded this session and we'll be posting it on our YouTube channel. Please follow us and like so you get notifications. Dave?
Could I ask you all to, when you're next on YouTube, just in the YouTube search box, type in TRBC and then space survival, and subscribe to the channel, because we will be posting regular content. And if you hit the bell icon, you'll actually get notified as and when we upload new videos. So you can see the previous 6 that we've done. The one today will be there before the end of the week, and obviously we're running another 5 after this every week at 11 AM on a Wednesday. And if you can't make it live, you can always watch the content on demand, even using a VPN.
I remembered my question, Dave.
Good.
This, I don't know whether you know the answer to this, but is it, so when Brexit happens and we come out of the EC or the EU or whatever it's called, will we lose the ability to use roaming data in the way that you described for E?
You certainly won't when you're on a 3 contract. I think it's highly unlikely that you would lose roaming because the UK isn't part of the EU. But I think there's a whole host of legalities that we are going to have to negotiate. But again, just be aware when you get a SIM, 3 is a good choice if you do travel a lot, because you can go to 91 countries outside of the EU as well. You can go to New Zealand, Australia, Canada, United States. And I love it because when you go to those places, you just use your mobile phone as if you're at home, and you don't have the worry of potentially alarming bill when you get back.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So I think that's everything. We will, as I say, we'll send a recording out. We'll post it onto YouTube. Do follow us on LinkedIn if you would like to. That's Twickenham and Richmond Business Collective, or TRBC. We also have a LinkedIn group, which I will invite you to all join after this session, so we can carry on conversations regardless of the day or the time, and post any questions.
Split into different statuses.
Sorry.
Items required.
Something's going on there. And next week, do try and join us next Wednesday at 11 AM, where I'll be speaking to Celia Rizzo-Thanassi, the Queen Bee of LinkedIn, and she will be telling us all about how to raise our profile on LinkedIn and get more leads as a result. So I think it's going to be a really interesting session, really valuable. I hope you can join us for that. And until next Wednesday at 11 AM, thanks again to Dave. Thank you all for attending, and hopefully we'll see you next week.